So today I want to talk about the RT-10D Klipsch subwoofer. So just a little backstory for me. When I first got started into audio, I used a car subwoofer amplifier and a car sub, and I put them together and I used that as my first subwoofer for home theater and music. And it was terrible. It was not very good. I think the subwoofer was actually blown and the plate amplifier was like way too low wattage for pushing that subwoofer. So it was very muddy. It was terrible. But it ended up dying. And so what I ended up doing was just going on this massive search for the best subwoofer I could buy. I looked at all the places, AudioGone, Craigslist. There wasn't Facebook Marketplace at the time. This is back in 2011. And yeah, I looked everywhere. And I finally ended up settling on a eBay listing for an RT-10D. It was, I think it was even refurbished. And it was under $600, and that was the most expensive audio thing I had ever bought. When I got it, I was so excited. It was everything I had hoped it to be. My walls rattled. Everything was great. I loved it. And I over the years, I have replaced every other component in my home theater and audio setup, but I've always kept this subwoofer because I loved it. And I think that it's one of those things where it kind of got overlooked and moved past, and it was probably a bit expensive when it came out, so it really wasn't something that they made a lot of. But yeah, I just want to roll your mind back to the mid 2000s. You know, Blu-ray was new. There was a format war of HD DVD versus Blu-ray, and you know, so it's in this sort of environment that I was looking at buying sort of my first subwoofer. And so it lasted for like a year or two. And so then in 2011, I ended up buying this subwoofer. So it came out years before I bought it. So 2007, something like that, is when the subwoofer came out. And, you know, at the time, there were some internet direct companies that were selling, but they weren't nearly as big as they are today. And so, you know, I was looking for names that I knew, and I had done a lot of research on all these different subs that I could go with. But Klipsch at the time came out with kind of two subwoofer lines. There was the RSW and the RT series. So the RSW series, fantastic set of subwoofers. So it was a sealed enclosure, basic square box kind of thing. And it had an active woofer on the front and a passive firing rear woofer. And it was a great sub. Those were great subs. And that was kind of their more traditional approach for a sealed sub. And you know, they also had the lines lower than that, but those were more common. And then they had kind of these more architectural subs, which is the RT series. So both of those series had like a 10-inch version and a 12-inch version. And then I think the RSW actually had a 15-inch version. So when I saw that there was an RT-10D for under $600, I was stoked. And yeah, it just was such a fun experience of getting out of the box, hooking it all up, and I've still have it from 2011. And one of the things that happened was there must have been some sort of power surge, and the amp plate went out, and I had my electrical engineering friend take a look at it, and we tried to fix it over and over again. And I ended up having to bypass the amp plate, and I bought like a Crown power amp, and I just plugged speaker wire into the power terminals and went into the subwoofer directly off of the power terminals. And so I'm still using it to this day. And in fact, I'm in the middle of this home theater build, And it's going to be one of 4 subwoofers that I'm going to have in the room, and it's going to be one in each corner. Okay, so let's talk specs. So it wasn't the most powerful amplifier in it. It wasn't the largest, and it wasn't the smallest subwoofer, but it's a sealed subwoofer with one active 10-inch subwoofer front firing, and then 2 rear passive radiators on the other 2 sides. So it's in a triangle shape, which is kind of unusual. And so the nice thing about a RT-10D or RT-12D is that you could actually put them in the corner of the room and use corner loading to improve kind of the bass performance. The RT-10D specs are about 700 watts RMS and 1600 watts dynamic. And so it has a negative 3 dB at about 22 hertz, which isn't the lowest, especially for a sealed sub. And then it has a 119 decibel rating at 30 hertz, which is actually pretty good, but nothing extraordinary, right? And it weighs about 60 pounds. So it's funny because it's not that large, but it's heavier than some of the cheaper, larger subs that you would see. What I love about this sub is that it can fill the room with sound. It can pressurize a room, no problem. I remember watching Lord of the Rings, and this is one of the first times that this ever happened to me. We had a small house, and we were watching, and I went to the bathroom on the other side of the house, and the studs in the bathroom were rattling because of the subwoofer in the living room. So that was pretty awesome. It can sound very smooth and tight, but also has a lot of force to it. So it's not going to be as boomy and big as, say, a large box ported design, but it does go fairly deep. I think the ratings on the subwoofer are fairly conservative, but also very powerful. Unlike the Sunfire subs that I have, which I love, I think that this subwoofer, it plays louder, plays deeper, just by comparison and experience, you know, put them on about the same. And yeah, they aren't as loud. They don't put out as much. And that makes sense because of the 2 passive radiators versus the Sunfires I have. It's just one single front firing woofer. I definitely think the RT-10D is a subwoofer that's far superior over the Sunfire subs that I have. But I love the tight and controlled nature that these sealed subwoofers have. So would I recommend an RT-10D? I mean, absolutely. I think they're great. So even if you have to put like a crown amplifier to keep the thing going, the woofers are great. The design is cool. I like that I can kind of shove it in a corner. It makes things easier to manage, and placement is a little bit easier that way. There are smaller subwoofers out there, but this one I think strikes a good mixture between sort of being easy to place, relatively small, but then getting a lot of output. So thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate all of the comments and people subscribing and liking videos and stuff. So thank you so much for the support, and have a great day.